Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, Play the Opinion Potomac Watch Podcast. That is, Play the Opinion Potomac Watch Podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
I'm Paul Gigot with Barton Swaim and Kyle Peterson here on Potomac Watch. Let's listen to a section of Tim Walz's speech where he hit the theme of freedom, which Democrats are trying to make their own.
This is a big part about what this election is about. Freedom. When Republicans use the word freedom, they mean that the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. Corporations free to pollute your air and water. And banks free to take advantage of customers. But when we Democrats talk about freedom, we mean the freedom to make a better life for yourself and the people that you love. Freedom to make your own health care decisions. And yeah, your kids' freedom to go to school without worrying about being shot dead in the hall.
Democrats and freedom, that's usually a Republican word, a Republican theme. Freedom, faith, and family. It was a long-time campaign theme by Republicans. Here, it's interesting the way he defines freedom. As I listen to that, essentially the right to have an abortion, though he doesn't use the word abortion, and the right to the government to control how many guns are on the streets so your children can walk home safely. And the description of corporations and whatnot suggests that you would think he never purchased a product from a corporation because they're all trying to steal from him. But Kyle, what do you make of what the Democrats are up to here?
I think some of it goes back to the distinction that political science make between negative rights and positive rights. And negative rights are what you classically think of as things in the Bill of Rights. You know, the government cannot tell you what to believe, where to go to church, how to worship, what to say. Positive rights, other things that are things that the government is providing. So the right to a public education might be one example. And this is old Democratic stuff. I think about the Four Freedoms famous speech from FDR, one of which is the freedom from want. You can find that chiseled on the stone at the FDR Memorial in Washington, D.C. And I think that that's part of what Walz is getting at here. The most telling line to me in his speech is this. He says, that's how we'll build a country where workers come first. Healthcare and housing are human rights, and the government stays the hell out of your bedroom. And so a mix of positive liberty and negative liberty there, but healthcare and housing are human rights. Healthcare as a human right is the kind of thing that people say when they think that the government should do more. They want single payer, they want national health care, national insurance, if not something like the NHS in Britain where the government is actually providing the care. But housing as a human right, I think is interesting. I'm not exactly sure how the government would embody that human right and make sure that every American is provided a right to housing. But I think that that is a tell of how progressive and kind of how to the left are Tim Walz's core ideas. That is not the kind of phrase that a moderate vice presidential candidate would use.
Barton, it's clear the Democrats believe that abortion and restrictions on abortion give the party the opening to talk about freedom. And it's certainly true that that is in some states a restriction on individual woman's liberty. On the other hand, it turns out that after Roe v. Wade was overturned, it's not all that much of a restriction because, as the Guttmacher Institute has shown, abortions have actually increased in the United States since Roe v. Wade was overturned. But apart from that, this whole freedom agenda misses and it just ignores so much of the coercion that lies behind Democratic policies these days, right? The climate agenda means you can't have a gas stove of your own. The electric vehicle agenda means you eventually not going to be able to drive gas-powered cars. Because of union control of schools, you can't send your children to the school of your choice with any public school backing in many states, and the whole cultural imposition of values as well in dealing with transgender issues and so on. That's the kind of coercion that belies this whole freedom theme.
Yeah, people on the left are much more sympathetic to, as Kyle was pointing out, positive personal rights or liberties. But Other than ongoing policy fights about abortion, there just aren't that many personal liberties Americans don't already have. We can go where we want to go. We can live just about any kind of lifestyle we want. Americans can say whatever they want, ironically, except in places controlled by liberals like college campuses, but leave that aside. So I think that's why Walz sort of artificially is inverting government regulations into forms of liberties. So he referred to, quote, your kid's freedom to go to school without worrying about being shot dead in the hall. I mean, I don't think that many kids literally worry about getting shot when they go to school, but we know what he meant. To achieve that result, though, to achieve the result that Walz is talking about, total freedom from guns, really, you're going to have to impose the kind of severe restriction on purchasing firearms that have already been tried and failed over the decades. So anytime you invoke a positive liberty, you're going to have to restrict negative liberties, and that's going to remain unstated on his part. I mean, to my mind, it's sort of a cheap trick. You can define any government mandate or regulation as a form of freedom, the freedom to live under that mandate or regulation. That's pretty obviously a rhetorical gimmick, but I do think it probably helps Democrats talk about freedom in a way that they typically don't.
Well, and the fact that they are invoking the word does suggest that they think that there's some political advantage here. Kyle, how would you respond to this if you were a Republican?
Well, I think part of what I would do is make the arguments that you and Barton are making, that there are all sorts of freedoms that are not being mentioned in here to drive the kind of car you want and so forth. But more broadly than that, I think that Republicans and Donald Trump are missing an opportunity to define Kamala Harris and what she believes in, because Kamala Harris is not doing that for herself in terms of policy. As far as I know, there are insinuations that she no longer believes the things that she called for in 2020, including Medicare for all, banning fracking, and so forth. But she hasn't really explained why her thinking has changed. She hasn't repudiated those stances. And so I think there's all sorts of fodder for Republicans to make that argument for Kamala Harris. This is what Kamala Harris believes, even if she's not saying anymore that she wants Medicare for all. That's obviously the direction that she wants to take the country, and she will go as fast as she possibly can toward Medicare for all within whatever political limits that she sees from voters at any given time. I think that would be really a message that many people would be responsive toward, because even if they are ready to turn the page on Donald Trump, even if they think that Tim Walz seems like the kind of guy they want to have a beer with, they might be less interested in signing up for that if they know that it might someday mean somewhere down the line Bernie Sanders' Medicare for all plan gets passed and private insurance policies are abolished in the United States of America.
All right, we'll leave it there for today. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Barton. And the big speech tonight, Thursday night, by Kamala Harris, accepting the nomination for her party to be president, and we'll be here tomorrow as we are every Monday through Friday on Potomac Watch. Thanks for listening.